Welcome to
Crazy, right?
A podcast
Be your own person.
for those affected by
Crazy, right?
mental health,
I wanted to just try it.
Crazy,
It's something that I've struggled with for a while.
featuring live improvised music
Now I finally got my head right again.
by your host,
am I right? Crazy,
It feels good to talk about it.
right? Crazy, right?
Dave Asher.
My guest today is Aram Vartian. He is a 43-year-old multimedia producer with a diagnosis of bipolar. Aram, thank you for joining me here today in my studio. I'm going to step over here to my piano.
I did listen to one episode. I heard that. And I was like, oh, shoot. I wonder if I should tell him I cannot sing.
Well, we'll keep that in mind.
It's a shame, too. My brother, lyrically gorgeous, voice of an angel. And then, he got all of it.
Is your brother older or younger?
Younger. By 2.5 years.
And where are y'all from?
Born in Detroit, moved when I was 3 and raised just outside of Washington, D.C. Moved to Chicago about 2 years ago.
And what brought you here?
Honestly, what I do. Well, also family. I have family in the area now. They all left and moved back up here. My brother got married, had a kid. His wife's from Chicago. The second there was a kid. The parents came. And then I was kind of left in D.C., with friends and everyone, but on my own. And I started doing these actual play, role-playing podcasts. And I met some people up here. The improv community is dead perfect for what I do. And I was kind of bored of D.C. Also, it's crazy now.
Of course. Yeah. So these role play podcasts, what are some of your podcasts? What are they called, and what does it entail?
Sure. So I do, the main podcast I do is called God's Fall. It's an original story about a post-apocalyptic world where the gods all killed each other and magic is dead. And then the players are the new gods rising up from those ashes. The other show I do, Rise of the Demigods, is actually 5 years before that. So they're playing characters who are leading into the destruction of the world. So we're getting kind of both sides of it.
When did you first get, what is it do you think about role-playing that is so attractive to you?
I have always told stories. I have always been fascinated with telling stories. That's the main part. And I think another part of it would just be that there's an element of control that you don't get in your daily life. The world makes a little bit more sense, even when it's complete nonsense.
Do you find that there are times when the world makes sense and then later on you realize that was just an illusion?
Yeah, about every 5 years.
Are those 5 years, are those times when you're going into a manic episode?
It's interesting because I didn't know what it was back then. I was only recently diagnosed as bipolar, and for a long time, and also that I'm on the spectrum, and for a long time I just assumed I was weird, or somehow broken, or somehow, just different from everyone else. And I am different from a lot of people, but not in the way that I thought. It's a much more positive view on it now, as opposed to being fearful and negative in the past.
Could you take me a little bit on that journey? Almost if it's the story of from where you were when you felt like you were different or broken, as you say, and the arc of that coming to a place of recognizing that you're special.
Well, it was complicated. Growing up gay in Northern Virginia was not easy. That made me feel different. The fact that I stuttered very, very badly when I was younger, and it took me a long time to get over it, always made me feel different, always made me feel like every time I opened my mouth, people were going to think I was dumb or disabled in some way. That led to a lot of therapy when I was younger, and there were so many adults looking at me and in some way telling me, at least what I heard, was that I was broken. I ran from it. The second I got out of high school, the second I dropped out of high school, and I never looked back. I just thought that therapy wasn't a thing for me. And then I found that my coping mechanisms as I got older broke down more and more and more. And recently I had a cataclysmic breakdown where I hurt some very good friends, blew up a show, ruined my reputation with Dungeons and Dragons, who I'd been hired to work for officially, and just kind of everything crashed down around me, and I just couldn't understand why.
Could you go into that a little bit, if you're able to? Some of the dark moments, some of your behaviors that you had with the D&D organization. If you don't mind, take me to some of those low points there, even if with specifics of the sorts of behaviors. I know it can be difficult to go there, but if there is anything that you can share about what those low points were.
I had formed a group of friends who we quickly bonded and called ourselves family. And there was love and trust in that room. But I put these people on pedestals, and I never felt good enough for them. And because I never felt good enough for them, despite my successes at the time, I had the biggest show coming in. I was bringing an audience to them. I couldn't sit comfortably there. I just idolized my friends, and that caused me to get scared and panicky whenever I felt that there was a disconnect between us. And that panic made them pull away. And the more they pulled away, the more desperate I got. And that rolled into fear and anger. And at the same point, I was dealing with crippling physical pain because a tooth infection that I was unaware of had given me arthritis. And my hands wouldn't open when I got up in the morning. I'd spend all day in pain and swelling, feeling claustrophobic in my own body. And all of that caused me to hurt some very good friends. And then eventually to the point where they were just like, enough, and just pushed me to the side. And that wasn't enough for me. I tried to apologize. I tried one grand gesture after the next, anything to win these people back. And all I was trying to do was make myself hate myself less and feel like less of a failure, and generally reconnect with people who I still care very much about.
Have you mended any of these fences since becoming more open about your experiences, or a more recent diagnosis? Have you been able to mend bridges, or is there still some unresolved tension there in your mind about these connections, these relationships?
I quite honestly think they'll never be resolved. I frightened them. It wasn't just that I hurt them, I scared them. And the last apology letter I sent was met with such vitriol to the point where they blew me up publicly. And it was terrifying for me and scary. And it's not their fault. I'm not blaming them. They were just trying to understand what was going on, and they were frightened of me. I bought a bus ticket to Indiana to a gun store that I found, and I picked the gun store because it was within walking distance of the woods, because I didn't want to leave a body out on the road, and I was just going to go get a gun and end it. And just as I was like literally holding the printout of the ticket, I panicked and I called Chicago Lakeshore Hospital, and then took a Uber over and checked myself in.
And how long ago was that?
That was about 7 or 8 months ago.
And what happened when you checked yourself in? Where did you check yourself in, and what happened there?
Yeah, so Chicago Lakeshore Hospital is a general catch-all for both mental health and mostly for addiction. I'd say 80% of the people who were there for addiction issues. I was put in a small room where I just sat and stared at a wall for probably 7 hours. I didn't speak. They had taken all my things. I didn't have my phone or anything, not even a pen and paper. So I just sat there and stared at a wall. And then they had me check in, had me undress. At the time, I was so malnourished that I was down to about 132 pounds, and I'm 5'10". That's not a good look on me. They were so concerned that they put me on double portions immediately. And then you're just kind of tossed in. You're just kind of like you're just told to go to your first program with no idea what you're doing or what to say or who everyone is. And most of them are addiction programs. So it was tough at first, but they were and that hospital is a disaster, but there are very good people there who work very hard with incredibly limited resources.
How long were you there?
I was there for 6 days.
And you received a diagnosis when you were in there?
Yeah, they diagnosed me as bipolar and then rapidly got me acclimated to lithium while I was in there, as well as Seroquel, so I could sleep through nightmares.
And when you received that diagnosis, did you have a reaction of, oh, that explains things, or was there any sort of part of you that was hesitant to accept that? What was your reaction when they gave you that diagnosis?
I think grateful. I just was so happy to put a word to it, that I wasn't a terrible person, or that I wasn't just broken, that I wasn't all the things I feared I was. There were reasons behind it. That doesn't excuse my actions. I'm not saying that I'm not saying that it makes an excuse, but there was some understanding of how my mind was working, and the panic and the fear and the anger and the rage that just seemed to come from nowhere.
And how have you found life since being on the lithium and living? Would you say you're now living in recovery?
I don't know what that is.
Right.
I don't. Like, people say words like recovery. People ask me, are you better? I don't know what better is. I have no idea. Now I'm just at I'm on stable lithium. I suppose I feel more stable. I seem to have less racing thoughts and less panic and less fear. But once you get to the point where they've got you level, I don't know what better is. I don't know what different is. I'm just trying very hard every day to be aware of myself and more aware of other people.
Do you feel like being sensitive to awareness, would you say, in a way diagnostically for others, that is helpful in avoiding potentially a numbness?
I think it's helpful for everyone to be more aware of other people, whether it's their emotions or their feelings or their thoughts or their needs. I mean, I think, if anything, this has made me a better person because it's forced me to be more aware.
Would you share with me a connection with somebody or something, somebody really, a new connection that you've made, whether it's to work or another person, since the diagnosis and getting on meds and coming out of the hospital?
One of the things I wanted to do, especially because I was here, was that I wanted to form another show. My other cast is in DC. I actually fly back to record with them every few months. So I wanted a crew here. And I was so scared to start a new group because I didn't want to hurt anyone else. And I sat each one of them down and told them everything, exactly what had happened, everything I had gone through. And frankly, I never expected to hear from any of them. But all four of them called me back, and all four of them sat down with me and trusted me, not just in front of microphones, but in front of a camera. And that has been healing. It's an all LGBT group, something I've wanted to do for a long time. And when there's family around a table, when there's a commonality there, it is amazing. And we can tell stories and have representation for people who also are scared or hurt or lonely. And I think that has really helped me heal. If anything, I think that's been my best therapy.
Well, I can definitely relate to that. Is there anything in particular right now that you can think of that you're specifically looking forward to?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to going back to Gen Con this year. Gen Con was a critical disaster last year. It was one of the most painful episodes of my life. It was when the friend circle I had truly exploded.
So you're going to see these people who, if it's fair to say, people who you've had a sensation these bridges were burned with?
Yes.
And you're going to see these people again coming up soon?
Absolutely. We live in the same space. We work in the same space. People who listen to my show listen to their shows. There's a crossover all the time. The audience was particularly hurt by all of this because they didn't know what to do with it. But I will be seeing them probably for the rest of my life.
I wish you the best with that. Do you have anything in your mind, a plan, or are you kind of just going, but like you're going to bring your best self and let the chips fall basically in the favor of you being present?
I think partially that. I also think that my friends are keenly aware of how I feel and are already forming plans so that one of them is always around me, so that I always have a little bit of friend armor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and otherwise, but I also have to be very present because a lot of people listen to my show and love my show. We've always had really strong representation, and there are people who are moved and affected by that and want to say hi to me and want to see me. So I just have to make myself as present as possible and then run and hide if I have to, I guess.
Well, I feel like I certainly hope that they have your back like that, having that person there for you. Do you have any advice for other people, myself potentially, who have a situation where they have peers who have a goal to mend bridges with, and advice on both sides for somebody who is seeking that validation from peers after going through a hard time, advice on your side, and maybe anything you might recommend to people as far as being accommodating to friends or loved ones who have been through a journey like this.
It's hard. It's really hard, especially when someone is hurting themselves and hurting you and you do not know why. And you cannot expect people to forgive you. They don't owe you that. Your friends that you have hurt, your friends that you have frightened, your friends that you have driven away do not owe you that. If they ever decide to give it to you, if they ever decide to forgive you, that is a beautiful thing. But everyone's got their own journey, and it's unfair for you to ask them to take on your burden, especially after you've harmed them. That said, if you want to, if you're looking for ways to help friends, if you're looking for ways to hear them, just listen. Let them talk. Don't judge them. Don't direct them. Certainly suggest avenues where they can find mental health help and find happiness, but just listen to their stories and try to understand.
Aram, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you again to Aram Vartian. You can find him online at aramvartian.com as well as godsfall.com, and you can follow him at Vartian on Twitter and most other social media. Aram, it's been a real pleasure. That wraps up this episode of Crazy Right with Dave Asher. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider writing a review or rating this podcast, and of course, we would love it if you subscribe. I'm Dave Asher, and I'm glad to be here.
Fall down.